their own satisfaction that marriages usually don't get better. So their ratings typically go downhill over time. Now, the successful marriages are defined not by improvement, but by avoiding decline. That doesn't mean the marriage is a misery. The thrill of and fluctuation phase. So the the sex drive that initiated and bonded the couple cannot sustain them over the decades. But most couples find other sources of contentment and remain satisfied overall. Just not as satisfied as the beginning sometimes though. Through the decline in satisfaction is so steep that it dooms the marriage. So by monitoring couples' interactions and tracking them over time, researchers have developed a surprising theory for the breakdown of relationships. Now, follow me. Imagine you're dating someone who does something that annoys you. This may not require a great deal of imagination. Perhaps your partner is in a spendthrift or flirts or with your friends or in the zone, out in the middle, with your stories. But how do you respond? 1, do you let it slide? Hope things improve. 2, do you explain what bothers you and work it out and compromise? 3, sulk, say nothing, but emotionally withdraw from your partner? Or 4, head for the exit, threaten to break up or start over or look for another partner? Now, excuse me. Those answers are a matrix used in classic studies of how dating a couple deals with problems. So, doctors at the University of Kentucky identified general strategies, constructive and or destructive, each of which could be either passive or active. Okay, now the constructive strategy sounded sensible and admirable. Okay, so but they did not matter much because remaining passively loyal had no discernible impact on the course of the relationship. So actively trying to work out a solution improved things only a little. All right. So what mattered was the what mattered was the bad stuff. As the doctors concluded, it is not such much the good constructive things that partners do or do not do for another. It's just that determines whether a relationship works, as it is the destructive thing that they do or do not do in a reaction to the problem. So when you quietly hang in there for your partner, your loyalty often isn't noticed. But when you silently withdraw from your partner or issue angrily threats, or you can't start a spiral of retaliations, you know what I'm saying? The reason long-term relationships are difficult, say Carol Robut, is that who leads the couple study of a lot of shit is saying that the sooner or later one person is liable to be negative for so long that the other one starts to respond negatively too. So when that happens, it's hard to save the relationship. Negativity is tough disease to shake, and it's highly contagious, which I try to explain that to a lot of people, and it spreads through Facebook, it spreads through social media. So I just don't be jiving you fucking macaroni mouth motherfuckers when I say that shit. That be real shit. Don't play. Other researchers have found that when partners are separated and asked to ponder aspects of the relationship, they spend much more time contemplating the bad than the good. So to get through the bad stuff, you need to stop the negative spiral before it begins, yo. So that means, like, stop complaining. Nobody wants to hear that Bomba Clara Rastafarian bullshit. What the fuck, nigga? Alright. But suppose you manage to survive your courtship without any problems, right? And this may take more imagination than you may need, but you just graduated from dating to a blissful fucking matrimony fucking situation, okay? And your soul soars, your heart sings, and your brain is in a wash, and oxycontin, dopamines, and other fucking neurochems and associated with love. So you are probably in no mood to participate in the scientific study, but some other newlyweds were like persuaded to do so, for a long-term project called Pair. All right, and the full unromantic name of this process of adaptation in intimate relationships. So the couples in Central Pennsylvania were interviewed during this first 2 years of the marriage by doctors who cataloged both the positive and negative aspects of relationships. So some of the people that were already in this shit was cool and hostile towards their partners, but and tended to get divorced quickly. But most couples show lots of mutual affection and went on to celebrate several anniversaries. Over the long haul, though, those tender feelings, or those tender early feelings, were not reliable harbors, of what was before. More than a decade later, I could say, the disproportionate numbers of the couples who had been almost like giddily affectionate were no longer together. So as a group, those who discovered, those who had divorced has been a third more affectionate during the early years than the ones who went on to have a long, happy marriage. So others, the short terms, their passions had enabled them to, surmount their misgivings and their fights, but their positive feelings couldn't keep the marriage going forever. It was how they dealt, kind of like with the. It was kind of how they dealt with the fucking Apple Watch. But it was kind of how they dealt with the negativity stuff, their doubts, their frustrations, and their problems. And now with that being said, it's like, yo, if you always that type of person who always starts off with a saying, just put it like this: if your energy, because energy plays a lot on a lot of things. So if your energy bad, everything else is going to be bad. You know what I mean? But that predicts whether the marriage will survive. Negativity hits young people especially hard. So, which is one reason that people who marry early in life are more likely to divorce than ones who delayed marriage. All right. Another reason is that younger people tend to have less money, which means more stress. All right. That's another reason. So some couples, of course, are better off splitting up, but far too many of them self-sabotage a relationship that could have worked. So researchers who track couples have repeatedly been puzzled to see relationships destroyed, and even when there are no obvious cases to test their theory, the doctor Sandra Murray and John Holmes brought couples into labs and gave them questionnaires to be filled out at tables arranged so that the partner sat with their backs to each other. Now, they both be answering the same questions. Now, the experimenter explained, and it would be that they not communicate in any way as they filled out the form. So, in fact, though, the questionnaire were different. So, one form asked people what they didn't like, about their partners. They could list many traits as they wanted, but where told if was a fine line to name just one. So these people who been dating on average for years and years had few complaints, but mostly pretty satisfied. So typically wrote down one or two things about their partners that were less than ideal, and they put their pens down, and that was that. The other partners were given a much difficult task: listen all the things in their home, instructed to name at least 25 items. They started writing catalogs, pieces of furniture, kitchenware, gadgets, books, arts, or whatever, and were often still working away at it like 5 minutes later. So meanwhile, the other partners were sitting there with nothing to do but listen to the scribbling and assuming that it must be a thorough investigation of their personal failings. They've been hard pressed to name just one or two compliance, but they apparently had much different views of their relationships. As always in such studies, both partners were later informed of the deception. So nobody went home unhappy, but before revealing the truth, the experimenter asked one more question about the relationship, and it turned out that the deception had a big impact on some of the people. The ones already prone to insecurity, the people with the high self-esteem as measured in the test before the experiment, felt a little threatened, but shrugged it off because they, were secure enough to know that their partners valued them. Okay, but the people with low self-esteem reacted strongly to presume chaos or criticism more so. So once they heard all that scribbling and behind their backs, they feared then that their partner might reject them, and that fear took over to project themselves. They changed their own attitudes. They lowered their regards and affections for their partners, and they felt less close and less trustful and less optimistic about their relationship. And in a way, like the insecure people were reacting needless because in reality they were valued by their partners just as much as their secure one was. So, but the project their own self-doubts into their partner's mind. So they assumed that their partners will judge them as harshly as they judge themselves. You know what I'm saying? Which wasn't true. So this is a sort of like needlessness, self, protection, and it's especially harmful to relationships, as certain doctors would say. But by them taking, a track of this group, newlywed couples over the 3 years, all too often couples would seem to be in good shape. They had mostly few conflicts, but then one partner or the insecurities would kick in, and they would say, they mentally push their partners away or devolve in their relationships, even, there were no real dangers. And that goes off to saying sometimes you can be having a good relationship with somebody on good terms and shit be all right, but that goes with the saying like when you speak shit into existence, sometimes you create shit that never was there. And that's just how the mind works. So the mind and the energy is just crazy powerful things, you know what I'm saying? So don't never get it twisted, because somebody will come out the woodworks and just call your mom's a macaroni eating mouth motherfucker. Yee! I know what I'm saying, but yeah. On to further things, okay? Now, the nastiest things you are willing to do in bed based off your zodiac sign, okay? Now, Aries, from March 21st to April 19th. Aries are known for love and adventure and and willingness to try new things. So in bed, pretty much everything is on the menu. Now, the only hard and fast line for an Aries is monete, okay? Excuse me. And if you want to be a dead fish or do the same thing over and over, find a different partner. Cause Aries, they don't want that. Aries want that freaky shit. They want that. That's right. Welcome to the Jaylarock show. That's right. All the love. That's right. Rock with it. I'm gonna rock with it. Let's go.
I'll be there when you call. Pick it up when you fall. Shopping sprees in the mall. She's the apple of my eye.
That's right.
Pour some honey on